Okay, so now that we're recording, I won't go through the roll call again, but we're all here. And at 6:31, we will open and close the public comment for non-agenda items. And we will move on to our public hearing portion for the unit lot subdivision regulations and lot splitting regulations. We'll turn it over to staff to present. Would you like to present these separate or together?
I guess I can, just like last time, I'll present, subdivisions and the updates that we made since the time of the last meeting. And then also Caitlin, the lot splitting regulations and it's from the last meeting. So again, these are from state legislation that are, has been developed intending to try to make development quicker and easier for residential subdivision process. And the unit lot subdivision process is really intended for a diversity of different types of housing to enable an alternative to the condominium process. So it allows you to create unit lots, which are just sitting underneath the primary lot without establishing bulk and dimensional standards or conventional setbacks that would otherwise be required by the underlying zone. So it creates for a lot of different scenarios that you could use this for, including condominiums, townhomes, cottages, accessory dwelling units, and even single family homes that are on much smaller lots than what would otherwise be conventionally done, as long as you're not exceeding the overall density allowance for the underlying zone. So this also allows for things like strata subdivisions, which is more common in Canada, but it's coming here. Where you have the principally retirement communities where you've got single family homes that the person owns the home, but not the land around it. And that's commonly maintained and commonly owned. So this is really to provide flexibility. Our draft regulations are set up to allow it for both short plats for up to 9 lots and subdivisions for more than 9 lots, and for all housing types that are not stacked on top of one another. So that includes single family homes. That's an option that's been presented to the Planning Commission and ultimately to the City Council. Staff do recommend that we allow that because it does allow the most flexibility and it has advantages of allowing for preservation of open space and critical areas while also trying to achieve more of what you otherwise would be density-wise for the underlying zone. So I'll turn it back to you for any clarifying questions and then we can open it up to the hearing.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we did go over this, but commissioners do have more questions.
Was the comment from the tribe at the end of the document, was that new from the previous?
Yeah, it was. So that comment was about the concern that, and that's more in particular to lot splitting, a concern that a lot split without creating a tract to separate out critical areas could create a future situation where somebody may then have critical areas occupying most of the site, and then they apply for a variance process or reasonable use exception process and get to develop otherwise what would be within a critical area tract. So we've addressed the tribe's comments and required that lot splits, as well as the other subdivision processes, require that you place a critical area within a critical area tract that can't be developed.
Oh, we have a question from Stephen.
Yes, I'll go on camera here. I want to follow up, I guess, Mike, on what you said about the preserving open space versus what I think I read in the information in the packet, that the way that the development is wanted on these new types would be not to have things clustered together, but to have them more spread out. So is that talking about the same thing, or is this a different topic?
No, that is the same thing. So that I added a provision, and that's for your consideration tonight, that when you're doing that clustering to preserve open space, I think the concern might be that if you cluster everything all together,
okay,
you then lose the idea of what the single family zone is intended for. So that provision said that you cluster up to 9, and then you've got to separate clusters from one another so that it's not just all stacked in one corner of the development. That's an option. That was to address the concern on that. whether or not that's truly a concern, or if you guys recommend not including that and allowing full clustering, that's up to you. There's advantages and disadvantages of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You may have, I think I missed the meeting when it was first introduced, so apologies for this, but how did you decide on a maximum of 9?
That was just based on the 9 being the limit for a short plat, based unit lot subdivision. So you've already got 9 men together, but that's an arbitrary number.
Okay.
So if you guys decide that 20 is a more appropriate number, that's open to discussion.
I'll throw it out there while I guess I'm talking about 9 seemed like a high number to me. Keeping in mind of sort of trying to maintain the small town feel North Bend. So throwing that out there for other people to consider. I don't know if people have differing opinions about 9 would be good.
Yeah, what would be a good number?
I don't know, 4, the minimum, but I don't know why. I mean, I guess I secretly was hoping you had some like cool data or something and mapped out what potential properties could be.
Yeah.
It's 2-9, so
Right.
depending on your lot size, like you could apply for this for 4,
Certainly.
and that can meet the,
4 would honestly be pretty small, because that gets tough when you've got the associated infrastructure and so forth. To then spread everything out into just little clusters of 4.
And the density is the same for single family. So like you need more acreage if you're doing 9.
Right.
than 4, right?
And not overall. So let me draw a picture again. So here's the idea. You've got your lot, your parent lot that you created. And say the underlying zoning would allow you to have 8 units. So you've got your road coming through conventional single family zone. Means this is what you're doing. You're creating 8 units that are kind of maximizing the square footage. And if you've got a critical area in one corner, for example, say that's a critical area and it's buffer, and here's this buffer, you're probably going to just lose that lot because you still otherwise have to meet your lot size requirements. So then, under the unit lot subdivision idea, you're taking the same parent lot, which has got the same critical areas, but then you're allowed to cluster that. So say you've got a road that's coming in, and maybe you don't even need to do the whole road, because you're going to do, well, I'll even make it more dramatic. Just a little cul-de-sac like that, and you're going to do much smaller lots. Draw enough there. There's 8 lots, much smaller. The rest of that retains as open space. So you've got a big open space tract. You're achieving the same number of units, but the density overall is no different because it's 8 units per acre.
But for the parent lot
Or
though,
whatever it is.
the parent lot doesn't change. So like if it was 4 units, it would be the same sort of, but just smaller scale, right?
who owns that wider plot of land?
The homeowners association or the collective of the individual lot owners.
Got one more idea in regards to like the strata thing. My mom actually lives in a community like that in Illinois,
Okay.
and works out great for retired people and fixed incomes and whatnot because the cost they're like getting a mortgage only for the cost of the actual house. So instead of the house being $250,000, it's $115,000, which is something that at least my mom was able to squeeze into. And HOA fees are a little bit on the high side, but she's also older and she doesn't have the whole grounds and the entire place to take care of her yard, all that stuff. So kind of with the possibility of that, I mean, it seems like it would potentially, if something like that gets developed, with this passing, definitely make some more affordable housing for, especially retired people on here in fixed income. So it's definitely enticing.
Right. Well, and even though the tribe's comments are for the next item, I mean, it does fit here too, where it does allow more open space, that feel, so. I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing.
I think it's great the way it is. Yeah,
Okay.
I think you've addressed the concerns and I think it's very well, it well positions people to actually go after something like this. And I misspoke, so it's actually, it would be a short plot subdivision up to 9, and this is for over 9. So what you just did is for 1 acre, and if the homeowner has another acre over here, then they could add an additional cluster of 9.
Well, the process is just different if you're under 9 or over 9.
Yeah.
The unit lot subdivision process as presented in the draft can be used for either. And it's just whether or not, if you're under 9, you're going to use the short plat process. And if you're over 9, you're using the subdivision process, which requires a hearing before it is. Yeah.
And then, but just to clarify, so like, let's say the homeowner has 10 acres and they start with 1. And then in 5 years, they do this again, like that doesn't require a hearing examiner because they're doing these at different times.
If they're beyond 5 years, it doesn't. If they want to do that within 5 years, then it kicks it into the subdivision process that requires it.
Let's open the public hearing. 6:42, we'll open the public hearing for the unit lot subdivision regulation item. Are you here?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a project that's 24.5 acres and it's gonna be just, right now it's double zone, low density residential. It's like 96 units, but
For the record, you need to state your name.
some are Jeffrey Yee.
Yeah, just for the record.
Yeah. And, but unfortunately, only about 35% of that 24 acres is developed. The rest is gonna be critical areas, open area, whatever, so. Yeah, I have issues with FEMA floodplain, Gardner Creek, hilly topography up on the slope, and there's only small areas of buildable area that I can actually put residential units, and so, I mean, clustering is how I can make this thing work, and so. And then you look at the cost of infrastructure, putting roads, utilities, all that stuff, that's too expensive, so if you're talking, reducing it. And I actually like to see for my project more than 9, but if you get like 4 or 5 units maximized per cluster. I think it's really cost prohibitive or expensive because you're running utilities up the hill, you have sewer, we got a booster station for water. And so on, so, but, I mean, I like the idea of clustering, just where, how to make it work for the city and for the developer, from an economic standpoint, it's gotta be financially feasible. Again, as long as, I'm gonna conform with the concept here because I'm gonna have, what more than 50% of my property is open space, preserving critical areas and whatnot, so I should conform within those guidelines.
Perfect.
So,
Thank you so much.
yes, thank you.
Is there anyone online? No, there is not. Okay, so we'll close the public hearing at 6:45. And we'll turn it back to the commission. Now, there were 2 alternatives to consider when we're making our motion for more than 9 units. And I'm obviously not quoting this, and then allowing it in single family. So, let's see. Yeah, that language is in the packet, but I don't have it in front of me. Yeah, on page 5 of the staff report. So we can continue talking through this, or if anybody's ready to make a motion, you're welcome to do so.
Even just another clarification, we say we count at 9 for this mechanism that we're using. And you've got an area of land geographically that could support 18.
Mhm.
Now we want to cluster those. We capped it at 9, so in theory, you have potentially up to 2 clusters of 9. What is the difference in spacing between those 2 clusters?
Yeah, I intentionally didn't get into that because the more parameters that you get, the more difficult it becomes to review something and determine something compatible. So it could be a small separation, but
Is there already in ordinance a standoff distance between, like even within a cluster? I assume the houses have to be a minimum distance from each other.
Mhm.
Is that? what
It would be fire separation in that case, because these would need to be single-family homes, because that's the only typology allowed in the single-family zone, in the LDR zone. They would still need to be detached units, other than an ADU, which could be attached. But that separation wouldn't have to be 15 feet, which is what the separation of side yard setbacks is in the LDR zone. It could be the minimum separation of, I believe it's 3 feet under fire code for separate structures.
in buildings?
Yeah.
In regards to the number of lots that could be created, starting to wonder if, I mean, this would potentially be very difficult. I really don't know, maybe not. Like, should it be a flexible number depending on the size of the parent lot? I mean,
The number of clusters or the number of units per cluster?
yeah, the number of units per cluster, yeah, I mean, yeah, if you have 100 acres and you're moving to 9 clusters, it seems like, I mean.
Yeah, it's really an open question because it's just uncharted territory. So
Yeah.
I couldn't find other examples of that scenario from a quick search of other jurisdictions. But at the same time, the intent is to keep it from all being clustered and feeling like a big high density area that isn't really consistent with the intent of single family low density residential.
Is there anything limiting that from happening? If you had what I mentioned earlier, something that would support 18 homes, you split it into 9 unit clusters. Could someone then take those 2 clusters and put them within the fire code 3 feet? One cluster to another. So essentially, you still have a big one. They're just administratively.
We have to have a reasonableness determination that
Okay.
you got to have a certain distance between clusters that is probably more than a conventional setback.
So would that have to be put in writing somewhere, or is that just determined case?
It would, I guess my idea was it would be determined case by case, but we could provide some clarification in the standards that clusters be separated in a minimum of 20 feet or whatever that provision is.
Would that save you a headache, you know, as people are.
Probably ultimately that is something
Yeah.
we should have because I could see that there would be that
Somebody trying to.
conversation. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think maybe 25 feet would be a reasonable separation. That's a typical conventional rear yard setback in the LDR zone.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like this, I don't know if it's a loophole or not, but you know, we say we're gonna limit to 9, but in theory, without it being defined, you could just put 2 clusters adjacent together. Now you've got an 18 unit cluster.
Okay. Yeah, I can offer that. I'll add some language that clusters shall be separated by a minimum of 25 feet from another cluster.
and so that can just be part of the recommendation if everyone wants to go that direction. Unless you want to see it again, but
No, I don't need to see it again. I just don't, you know, not being an expert, if 25 is an arbitrary amount, it sounds like we use that anyway, but if there's other factors that should go into it, I have no idea. Like, I don't know, natural features in the land or something might dictate a little bit of that distance. And I suppose there's a waiver process through the administrative process as well.
There's an administrative adjustments to standards process that probably would not apply in this case because you're creating lots as opposed to just building a structure on a lot.
Yeah, all right, that answers my question. Thank you.
other thoughts?
There is a question in the audience if you want to entertain that.
Okay, I mean,
Question is typical roadways, private access roads are 22 feet wide. So if you're putting roads to those clusters, you're gonna have at least 20 to 22 feet of separation already. You know, I mean, I can't see the developer stacking, 30, 20 or 30 units cluster together. How do you access the cluster?
yeah,
You know?
I think that that's a logical way to go about it. I think I'm coming from a city that was redevelopment where there was, I mean, silly things that people would put in just for fun. And so that's the logical way, but sometimes if there is a will to do funny things and there's, a way for people to try to do that. So I think the idea of, just putting that language in is smart,
Yeah,
It just-
maybe a roadway,
it just agrees with the logic.
maybe a roadway constitutes a buffer between part of the area between the clusters.
And it will naturally become bigger than 25 feet because you have the road, the sidewalks,
Right.
the
Right.
vegetation. So
Yeah, I mean, 25 feet really isn't that big either, it's enough, but it's not huge, so. All right, does anybody want to attempt?
Actually, do you mind, give me 30 seconds to just read a note I had. Because we're voting, I think this is the lot splitting constraints.
Yeah, and if you'd prefer, you could do one motion for everything altogether.
Oh, are we doing all of them together?
Well, the final motion to recommend approval, I think we'll need to do the hearing still for the lot splitting.
Yes. Would you actually like to do a recommendation altogether or separate?
I'm only leaning that way because I did have a question that I think pertains to both overall.
So maybe also, before we go on to the lot split, I'm curious. Okay, so the agenda does not list the minutes. Do we need to vote on the minutes or?
Yeah, I would.
Okay,
see
so
your
let's
motion on the minute.
pause and we'll just jump back for a second. I apologize, I didn't bring up the minutes right away. It just wasn't listed.
I
So-
motion to approve minutes.
I'll second.
All right, any opposed?
No.
I think we're all unanimous.
Yes.
Commissioner Bryan? And Pereira? Anyway,
Nothing?
no problem, you're good?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay, all right, it passes unanimously. Okay, now we can get back to the lot split. Thank you. So we'll turn that over to staff to present on that unless.
just before we shift, I just want to make sure that we address both the comments in here. So I know that it sounds like we're all unanimously in favor of the clustering, but did we end up choosing, or like, do we even talk about going above 9 units outside of, all you said, Mike, was that if it's above 9 units in its current way of being written, that goes to a hearing examiner. So you're giving us the opportunity to increase the number without a hearing examiner.
No,
No,
no, I'm
okay.
not. So that's a solidified process already. But
Okay.
the state says if you're more than 9, you have to do it through the subdivision process. The question before you is if you want to allow more than 9 in a cluster.
Oh, okay, I misread
And
that.
also if you want to allow it for single family homes.
Okay, yeah. I think that.
But so there was the question of, do you want to allow it for more than 9 altogether? Because some jurisdictions say, no, you can limit it to 9 with the unit lot subdivision. It's just if you want to do more than 9, it has to go through the subdivision process.
Yes, okay, I understand that part now. And so for the single family or the LDR and CLDR zone, so this is applicable to what zone right now?
So
It's single family zone. So you're offering for low density and constrained low density. Constrained density.
So that's basically half-acre lots, so 18,000 square foot minimum lot size. The Ichijo subdivision that's just east of Wood River is an example of the CLDR zone.
Okay.
If you're using a unit lot subdivision for that, you'd be preserving a heck of a lot of open space.
Okay.
Yeah, smaller lots, but maybe that's a nice thing.
Yeah, so as it's written, we're allowed.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm in favor for that. I just want to make sure that we address the comments that were written in here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess staff will let you present on lot splitting.
All right, good evening, commissioners. I am here today to show you again a copy of the proposed amendment that would add the residential lot splitting process to Title 17. This was reviewed at the last planning commission meeting on June 3rd, 2026. Not a ton of major changes from the last time you reviewed it. A change was made to 17.22.090 regarding exemptions for frontage improvements when the frontage area is less than 20 lineal feet. That was discussed at our last meeting as a reasonable change. Additional changes were made to other sections of proposed amendments that will be discussed later under separate exhibits. As Mike stated, we did make changes in general to accommodate the Snoqualmie Tribe's comments regarding establishing critical area tracks for both unit lot subdivisions and residential lot splitting. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have remaining about this process.
Thank you. Was it this, and it's blurring, was it, which of these, or it doesn't really matter which one, but are we talking about the street improvements? Are we just going to talk about this later?
Yes, that was part of the discussion from our last meeting, the frontage improvements or street improvement requirement. For residential lot splitting, it's a process that divides one residential lot into two residential lots. The discussion that we generally had was that because this is only creating one new lot, we want to try and make it an accessible process for existing homeowners in the city. Part of that is being done by bumping the requirement to do public street improvements to whenever the development of lot 2 or the newly established lot is submitted for. The other part of that was what we discussed last time, which was a minor exemption from doing any street improvements at all, as long as the frontage area is less than 20 lineal feet, which really accommodates more of an L-shaped or flag-shaped property.
Thank you. Other questions?
I think if I remember right, we discussed the the threshold being 30 feet. And there was going to be a comment about talking to the engineer and see if there was a recommendation. Was that done? And he recommended 20 over 30?
Yes, he recommended 20 over 30 feet because that would accommodate a flag lot the best. It would really just serve as the driveway. The general consensus by staff was that 20 feet is not a substantial width to require any frontage improvements anyway, other than the driveway and driveway apron. It wouldn't be sufficient for sidewalk area. 30 feet.
Is there a minimum for driveways?
Yeah, 20 feet is the minimum for driveways.
Okay, and that includes, I suppose, just a flat part, and then they kind of have little wings that come up, like usually.
The apron.
20, yeah. Okay, that was my question. It seemed like that's usually more than 20.
The driveway width itself, the minimum is 20 feet. The apron is more negligible. I mean, I think it adds like maybe 1 to 2 feet on either side, which I think we would still consider exempt because what we're really looking at is the width of the frontage of the property.
And so in the example you just said, it would be about 22 feet with the driveway, but that would then, by the letter of this, require a frontage improvement because it's more than 20.
Presuming the property line, the apron doesn't go past the property line, which it could if the apron's in right away.
But it's based on just the property line. It's not based on what you have to do outside the property line.
So that, yeah, that extra footage of the apron is usually in right away, which wouldn't change the property line distance of 20 feet.
And it's like, we'll start seeing a lot of L-shaped properties with 20-foot frontages.
Hopefully people aren't lining up, but you never know. People do funny things.
Thanks for checking on that.
If there are any other questions, I'll open the public hearing. Okay, so at 7 o'clock, we'll open the public hearing. Would you like to speak on this one? Okay, thanks. Anybody online? No. Okay, we will close the public hearing at 7 o'clock and turn it back to commissioners.
I did have a comment. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. It stems from the comments made by the tribe around critical areas and requiring stuff about it. So we've added some comments, I think, in the lot splitting section 1722 that addresses essentially parent lots are not buildable in our critical area setback. Impervious standards are ineligible for split in the first place. there was some concerns if that is addressed only while looking at the parent lot, but not necessarily guaranteeing when newly lit lots are created, those lots themselves are under that envelope. And then I think during the lot subdivision 17.8, there's not at this point a mention of any restrictions based on critical areas.
So in general, the changes that were made to accommodate the tribe's comments are under Exhibit D, which is chapter 14.05.222 critical areas tracts. We'll review that section later, but it essentially just includes the requirement to provide a tract with a residential lot splitting or unit lot subdivision process. The parent lot, the overall property would be subject to that requirement. It would not just be the newly established lot. When you submit for a land division application, you're looking at the overall property and not just the proposed property that is the result of the permit process itself. So overall, if there is a property that has the critical area tract on it,
So glad we have this whiteboard.
Yes. That's not-
Yeah.
the critical area is right here. That would still need to be established as a tract. And each of these lots would need to demonstrate that they can still meet minimum dimensional requirements. So then the lot area would become that.
And what the tribe, just so everybody understands, what the tribe was identifying as a concern is maybe the wetland was instead like this. And if somebody, because unless it specifically triggers the need to place that tract or the critical area in a tract, somebody could first do a lot split and say, oh, I'm gonna do my lot split like this. Here's my newly created lot. And that is all in a wetland. So you can't develop in a wetland, but then there's a process when you have no other opportunity called a variance or a reasonable use exception that allows you to do something so it doesn't become a takings. So then suddenly somebody builds their house in a wetland. So trying to close that loophole by saying you got to do it in a tract to begin with.
Yeah, I think it's really smart to just have it up front.
So I think, again, sorry, I think you mentioned there's section E where most of this is covered.
E.
Thank you. But there was, I believe, an additional clause added to 17.22 that was restricting stuff. Is that accurate?
I think that was existing from the last meeting, but yes, staff reviewed the tribe's comments. We felt that the proposed amendments in 17.22 did somewhat address it, but added additional amendments to 14.05 and Exhibit D to solidify that and make sure that it corresponded equally between both chapters. So I think the section in 17.22 that you were talking about,
It's
it was
22.040B1.
B1. Yes, that is correct. That was existing at our last meeting. And what it is what was sent to the tribe. I think the tribe was just asking for additional changes that to correspond with one another and make it expressly clear.
And this is covered in section D. Are we referencing it then in these sections? So like 17.18, then say reference section D for.
There is a reference to it in 080I, environmentally critical areas as defined in 14.05 through 14.212 and BMC are protected. So that's the reference to it. You go to 14.05, 220, critical area tracts are required under these development proposals.
Any further questions? Anybody want to attempt a motion? And we'll include the questions from the unit lot, and so answer those in the motion. And we're combining the motion for the unit lot and the lot split.
And the associated other amendments.
Yes, thank you.
Make a motion.
Mhm.
I would like to make a motion to approve the North Bend Municipal Code 17.18 unit lot subdivisions and North Bend Municipal Code 17.22 lot splitting draft regulations with accompanying definitions, critical area tracks, and development permit approvals.
Are you including the 25-foot specification?
Oh, yes, and with the amendment to the 25 feet between dumpsters.
Okay,
Are we defining the 9 as a threshold?
I think we agreed to that, yeah.
okay, do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, I guess I'll just ask all in favor.
I,
Um, and was that Matlock or Pereira?
Matlock, I,
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's unanimous, so everybody approves that motion.
Yep.
Okay, let me see, and I think that is it.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything on this agenda? Okay, so we will adjourn at 7:04. Thank you all.
Yes.
I
thanks,
wanna-
everyone.
I appreciate the staff report you guys put together.
Yeah, you're good.
The staff report and the whiteboard, you're starting to really break
Yes,
it
the
down.
whiteboard is very- This is, you're talking about lots.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Just wanted to remark, ask if you guys, saw the email that I sent out with the motion and the edits to the parks element, because I know there was a lot we discussed, so I sent that out, provided the clarification in the level of service standards that it's basically, just our share, and we would be doing this together with other partners, and that, in the motion to recommend to the council to reevaluate this level of service standard before the next part update.
Yeah, thank you for doing that.
I think it definitely meant the intent of the motion. It's not where I would love it to be as personally, but it did meet the requirements. I'm still a little ambiguous on like, where do we define people? So we're basing this on, oh, one pool is meant, but the pool's not defined. Right? And I'm certain if it were defined, it would not be what we have. It would be something probably close to big. And then I think it's still a little bit ambiguous, and this is not to shoot, just, I think it's still a little unambiguous or ambiguous the way it's written. When we address it towards the city, there's, I think, an assumption made that that threshold is for the pool. When in reality, essentially the 11, I'll say 11 pools in there, 11,000 is sort of like the threshold for a one pool thing. But in reality, we're probably already at 11 if we consider who that pool services. And so I definitely understand the challenge of trying to scope that in and keep it a city because we care about the city stuff. But I think the way that it reads in a document, anyone reading it inevitably would make the assumption that 11,000 is threshold for a pool. And I don't think that's accurate to the situation. And again, pool's not defined, so it could be anything. I don't even, so those are my two grabs, but what you meant what we kind of defined in that motion. I think that's fine.
Okay, but in my agenda bill, I'm presenting to the council, I would be clear to say that you are interested for council to reevaluate that overall.
I think they should have.
We have a lot.
Maybe just throw out like, hey, you know what a pool is? Planning commission didn't know what a pool was.
Well, and I appreciate even in the minutes, you like writing out what the motion included. I think that was great. And so thank you.